Welcome to the Boxing Gossip channel. Many thanks for tuning in. Please hit subscribe if you are new and haven't done so before. Had a lot of new subscribers joining on in recent weeks. Many thanks to all the people who've recently subscribed, continuing to help build out the channel. Equally, many thanks to those of you who've been here since day dot, keeping the momentum going. Today, 16th of January 2018, this afternoon we had the Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker press conference. Lots of people have been contacting me about it. I wanted to do a brief video this evening just to discuss some of my thoughts on what happened. For a start, I want to compliment Team Parker and David Higgins. I think they've done a very good job of making themselves available to the media this week. I think David Higgins himself has come across as particularly entertaining, and he's one of these characters. There's a few of them in boxing. Callie Sauerland is another one. Whenever I see a David Higgins interview, I can't resist pressing click. He's had that exchange with Eddie Hearn on Sky Sports where they've almost been having a debate, and it properly made me crack up how he kept referring to Anthony Joshua getting absolutely flattened in fights. He had an extended 1 hour long interview with the Behind the Gloves YouTube channel. If you guys haven't yet seen that, I recommend checking it out. A very interesting piece. And you know, I was excited for the press conference today to see more of the same from David Higgins. It was at first a slightly quieter and more reserved affair. Higgins kind of made it clear that a lot of the bad blood in the lead up to the fight was in order to negotiate commercial terms ahead of the Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker matchup. He kind of made reference several times to the fact he was looking to raise Joseph Parker's profile through his activity in the UK in order to make the fight with Joshua more attractive to the UK public and therefore to Hearn's promoters. You know, and Parker, Barry, Kevin Barry, who's Parker's trainer, and you know, David Higgins were quite respectful on the whole, quite reserved, and I sensed that Eddie Hearn didn't like that. You know, I don't know if Eddie Hearn is kind of anxious that they need a lot of hype and a lot of bad blood to sell this fight. Despite all of the stuff that Parker's profile has been risen, Parker is still essentially something of an unknown commodity in the UK market. And whilst the boxing hardcore will be buzzing for the fact that this is a guy bringing a world title belt and buzzing for the fact that this is a guy who beat Andy Ruiz and Hughie Fury, I don't think the average man on the street knows that. So I think Eddie Hearn was kind of hopeful that David Higgins would continue his act in the press conference today and, you know, keep building the hype, keep building the bad blood angle between Anthony Joshua and Parker. You know, when David Higgins was becoming a bit more reserved, Eddie Hearn called him out on it and tried to make out that the reason Higgins was being a bit more reserved was because he was bottling it because Joshua was 5 foot away from him. Now, I don't really see that as realistic. You know, there was no chance that Joshua was going to stand up and give David Higgins a pasting in front of the watching media. You know, I didn't think that was realistic. I think it's more of a case that Higgins wanted to talk a lot in order to get the fight and in order to negotiate the terms he wanted to negotiate for his man. And now he's done that, he's happy to kind of drop the act to a large extent. You know, he's maintaining the fact that he thinks Joshua is weaker in terms of his mental state than Joseph Parker and, you know, has a glass jaw. But he's not ramming it home so much. And I wonder if that frustrated Eddie Hearn. I wonder if Eddie Hearn wanted a lot more of that to kind of build the bad blood and build the hype. And I think that's kind of why we saw Eddie Hearn almost turn on David Higgins mid-press conference and start calling him out and telling him he needs to say what he's been saying to AJ's face. You know, for me, that was a bit uncharacteristic. I wonder if, you know, they look at the Carlos Takam numbers that Joshua did and think that, you know, they want to, you know, go past that in this fight. And I'm certainly hoping that the, you know, the hype and the unification element and potentially the beef can be the way to do that. As for Anthony Joshua himself, you know, I think Joshua can't really decide what personality he's going to adopt at any given moment. You know, we have the guy who's been on Twitter calling people out, saying he wants to knock people out. We've had the, you know, the guy who did an interview with Kugan Cassius on IFL TV today, who was jokey, funny, humorous. And then we have the kind of guy who he tried to present in the press conference as kind of like this wise old man. You know, he referred to himself as like a very intelligent fighter. I think he said at one point, I'm going to be in the right physical shape, the right physical conditioning, and I'm also so intelligent in there, or something to that effect. I do think Joshua has allowed some of the changing public perception about him to get under his skin. I think some of that needs to go credit to David Higgins, but some of it I think is more general. Joshua's always been used to being the golden child. Ever since he's come on the scene, he's been, you know, celebrity number one, he's been the fan favourite, etc. Few things have happened at once. You know, he's had this to Cam fight, which people think was a subpar performance. He's had Deontay Wilder calling him out in the media, you know, and suggesting he's ducking the fight with Wilder. He's had the resurgence of Tyson Fury, who seems to be garnering a new generation of Tyson Fury fans. He's had this incident where his Instagram was reportedly hacked, which large numbers of the boxing public seem to be dubious over and are not overly pleased with the content of messages that were supposedly received by Eddie Chambers. He's also had this Snapchat controversy as well. So maybe for the first time, Joshua's public standing has started to be questioned ever so slightly, and we've seen guys like Tyson Fury, guys like Deontay Wilder getting more and more praise from the general public. I don't know, but Joshua today, he was a little bit on the defensive for me. You know, he talked relatively openly about being hurt by David Price in sparring. You know, he talked about, I think he called him McCracken, sending him out to Europe for the amateur championships where he got hurt in an amateur fight, you know. And he was relatively defensive there. For me, he was looking to make excuses. He referred to the fact that he'd just been let out of a police cell on one of the occasions. He referred to the fact that in another one of the fights, he was there in very, very bad physical condition. And, you know, it seemed to me that he really didn't like the allegations that David Higgins had created in the public about him having a glass jaw. And I guess that's exactly what David Higgins wanted. So you could say 1-0 to David Higgins. Look, my take, I'm not someone who's massively psychological when it comes to these things. You know, I think Joshua is probably someone who's used to having his ego stroked a little bit. And I think that he's probably not liked some of the negative press associated with his name for the first time. Do I think that's going to have a massive impact on fight night? Probably not. Do I think that Joshua is going to completely abandon his usual approach and completely go to war with Joseph Parker because he's a bit annoyed about something that's been said at a press conference? Probably not. You know, these things may have an impact in certain fights. I'm not so sure this is one of them. You know, Joshua is usually a very controlled, media-savvy guy. Parker is usually a very controlled, respectful, quiet, softly spoken guy. And I think we saw that today, and I think that's what the build-up will continue to be. But I do think, you know, Joshua, I think he's portraying numerous personas at once. And I'm going to be completely honest. I know people are going to hit the thumbs down. I know people don't like me saying this. Clearly, Joshua is the #1 fan favourite boxer in the UK. And a lot of people think I'm a Fury fan, which means I'm a Joshua hater. I actually find Joshua's sort of one of his personas particularly boring. I think Joshua at his best can be a charismatic, entertaining, quite amusing guy. You know, I think he's regularly a good guy to listen to. But sometimes he goes into this mode of being like a sort of wise old guy and talking about, talking about his levels of wisdom and talking about that sort of stuff. And for me, it's a bit of a turn-off. You know, I go to a press conference, or I listen to a press conference looking to get pumped up for a fight. And sometimes when you're hearing Joshua talking about what a businessman he is, or, you know, what sponsorships he has, or what an intelligent fighter he is, and that sort of thing, sometimes for me it's a bit of a turn-off. And I sense that I'm not the only one thinking that, you know. It is what it is, I guess. But this is a great fight. Did the press conference massively add anything today? Possibly not. But it reaffirmed that this fight is very, very much headed towards us and is going to be there before we know it. I think it's a great matchup. I've done numerous videos on the channel covering what I think will happen in the fight. There's going to be all sorts of future videos to come, so if you're interested in this fight and you want to follow the build up on my channel, please hit subscribe. To those of you who've enjoyed this video, please take the time to press the thumbs up button. Leave your comments as always in the section below. Let me know your take on the build up and the press conference so far. Did you find it entertaining? What do you make of some of the comments I've made in this video? Let me know your thoughts. As always, massively. There's one other thing I needed to throw in, actually. One other thing. What was it Joshua was... Oh, yeah. He said, no human can stop me. That was it. So when he was talking about these guys hurting him, he kind of was making the point that, yes, they've hurt him, but he's kept going. And he said, no human can stop me. You know, he seemed very, very confident at that point. And to be fair, I've always said to Josh, I've always said about any fighter, the sign of a good chin is if you can take a whack and keep going. And, you know, Joshua did do that in the Klitschko fight, albeit that he gassed for a round or two after taking that punch. Anyway, I digress. Please hit subscribe, please hit the thumbs up, please leave your comments in the section below. As always, thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate it.